What's up? This is Austin.
Aloy here.
Hi, this is Jia Wei.
Hello, Kenneth here.
Hello, Zhiyan here.
Well, we know the saying, too many chefs spoil the soup. But how true is it?
Do you agree, Austin, with this statement?
I mean, it really depends on what kind of soup we're cooking. Some soups actually need more cooks than others. Some soups actually need less cooks than others. But most of the time in the commercial kitchen, I think one cook per soup is a good amount to have.
What kind of chefs are we talking about, though? Sous chef?
Maybe
Master chef?
executive chefs?
Executive chefs? What's the definition of a chef? Do we want to start with that?
Yeah, maybe you want to bring back to the context we are familiar with. Like, is it in software development, agile team?
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's in an agile team, how will you consider someone a chef?
Anyone who can deliver or contribute to the value of the product, maybe? I would think so, at least.
I have a question though. If there's someone who thinks they're delivering values from their certain expertise or like area, but the team doesn't see much value in what they're bringing to the table, is that still considered a chef?
That sounds
Sorry,
like a
just
pastry chef.
not wrong, not wrong. Okay, but back to the original topic. If too many chefs spoil the soup, I think in the kitchen context, it might be the case where, if you have more than one chef, someone walks by, they taste, decide to add some salt. The next person walks by, they taste, they add a bit more salt. And when by the third or fourth person, they might realize it's too salty. They start adding sugar. I'm not sure if that soup would end up very nice. It might have too much salt and sugar in it, even if it's nice though. So I do agree with that statement to some extent. Aloy?
Yeah, I think it depends on the. I think it depends on the chef. I think how they work together. Yeah, but there's a few scenarios. I think if you think about like code review, you have like usually the senior chef will have the final say. Yeah. So that's one thing. So that's one thing to mitigate the issue. Or they cannot come to a conclusion that could be a way. Or they could come to an alignment on how to cook the soup. Yeah.
So my question is how much chef is considered too many and how much is just about right? And of course, yeah, one chef will start from that, but yeah, how much is too many?
This is why I'm a bit curious. The Scrum Guide, if I didn't remember wrongly, the Scrum Guide, they did mention a maximum of about 10 per group in a team. And that would be like including PO and SM. But I think it's a bit tricky because sometimes you need to see how, like, example, the organization is done. Example, if it's a startup, yes, sometimes the group might be small enough. But what if, example, the total in the startup is like what, 15 people? Would that still make sense to purposely split a team? Or if it's slightly more than 10 only, would it still make sense to purposely split it?
I think this brings us to what makes a team, right? It depends on what you're following, but essentially you want the team to include all of the necessary functions or skills needed to deliver the product in the end. And so if you only need five people or five team members for that, and all these A, B, C, D, E together can already develop this product, adding in F and G might be too many chefs already, in my opinion. But then if um, you need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, or more than 10 people in order to be able to deliver the product, then it's another thing to rediscuss the scope of the team. Maybe if the scope of the team should be redefined to be able to have a smaller team, because we know the bigger team you have, the harder it is to actually have a high performing team. But in terms of too many chefs, I guess it's the case where there are people who you feel like they're not necessary or essential to the team. Jillian, have you had a case where you think there might have been too many chefs, and what was the situation? And how do you determine in that case if it's too many?
I think that was a very close to almost split. I didn't manage to see the end where they did actually have the split, but basically, in a stand-up, what happened was, if I didn't remember wrong, you had about 14 or 15 packs in total, including everyone, and we had functions, front end dev, UI slash UX, back end dev, full stack also. Basically everyone from the function coming in together to actually be in a stand-up, and of course that does disrupt a fair bit in terms of trying to time box or any of the scrum ceremonies. But at the same time it's a bit tricky because in each function, like example front end, back end, each literally only had one or two person. So the tricky part also is if touch wood one day someone have to take medical leave, how do we do the handover if it's example two people? So it's going to be a bit tricky if you don't involve everyone in that function because you literally only have one or another. So that's the part where it gets a bit tricky. Like, how do we tell when is the right time to really split them up?
I feel like then it brings back to having like cross-functional team members, because if everyone can only take care of one function in the whole, like just now I mentioned, for example, A B C D E, if A can only do A and B can only do B, imagine if B went on leave, then A would only be stuck doing A, and in the end you can't deliver the product. But the smallest unit in a agile team is the agile team itself, and we don't go down to the individual developers. So I feel like if we don't have a cross-functional team, then we can't really swarm as a team. Then does it really, sometimes the question would be, if the team can't swarm together to create the product together, then are we still reaping the benefits or the most benefits from being agile? Or how cross-functional do you have to be sometimes in order to consider your team, cross-functional enough?
I think cross-functionality is always a very difficult sort of thing to build around. I mean, also in the chef world, there is also fairly limited amounts of cross-functionality. Like, I mean, definitely, some roles can be cross-functionally trained, but usually if you're going further deeper down into the nitty-gritty of things, or you need extreme levels of detail to do some work, then also how effective is a cross-functional team really if they don't have certain amount of depth and expertise in these kind of cases?
Yeah. And also my next question, because I think it's silent, is that when are we going to consider that the soup has already spoiled? Because that's the second part of the statement.
Also, now we're doing investment, and where's the the line to draw to pull out our investments and then restart a new batch of soup?
Yeah,
I mean, okay, in a typical kitchen setting, usually the head chef is the one that sort of like tastes the soup, goes around doing taste testing, everything to make sure everything is done correctly. I think something similar usually happens in an agile team, right? There's usually some sort of either arbitrary or person or a process that sort of drives the quality.
So I guess
Okay.
from what, sorry, no, I was just saying from what Austin is saying, I feel like I can infer that because for the agile teams we have an iteration or we have a cadence. So either way, we review what is done or we demo what is done in the past 2 weeks, and then or the sprint, and then when we do a demo, then the story is either accepted or not accepted. So I guess if the soup is spoiled, then the faster we have a feedback loop, the earlier we'll know or even if we can know in the middle of the sprint, that might be good as well. But at least you'll know during the demo. If it's not accepted, then I would consider the soup maybe spoiled in that case. But if it's accepted, or if it's partially accepted and there's a new story to work on something else, maybe because it wasn't included in the original scope, I guess we will still consider the soup not spoiled.
So the soup here in the analogy is the stories themselves that is being considered during the sprint planning, or the product
I think the
outcome.
output or outcome.
Yeah,
Perhaps
because sorry. Okay, so because after all, the customer in this sense would determine, like, for example, touch wood, if the dish does get served to the customer in the restaurant, they will definitely be able to tell you whether the thing has spoiled. So very similar here. Maybe during the sprint review or the demonstrations itself, the customers that review will be able to feedback, sharing whether the soup has spoiled. And then from there, maybe during the retro, we can review it and see how can we improve.
Yeah, because I just have a little bit of skepticism about the analogy of we were using soup here versus a product that should be in an agile way of doing things, delivered incrementally. So can you really deliver a soup incrementally? So yeah, that's why I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you can deliver a meal incrementally, right? You start the appetizer, then the aperitif, then the entree, then the main course, then the dessert. So kind of, if you think about it from that perspective, that the dinner is being delivered incrementally.
Yeah. You still have bubble tea afterwards.
Oh yeah, koi. Oh my god, I need koi now.
FYI, someone is having koi while we're recording this. But I think to clarify on Kenneth's point, I guess yes, it's a bit tough to deliver the soup incrementally, but I was thinking of that analogy. I was thinking of every increment being its own soup. If you get what I mean. Like, it wasn't like a one-to-one analogy, it was just kind of similar enough to draw an analogy.
Yeah,
but
if you look at
yes,
it differently,
yeah.
If you look at it differently also, it can just be soup, just that the soup gets better and better and better all the time until you reach the perfect lobster bisque.
But I feel like then this goes back to the original analogy I was talking about, where if someone thinks it's too salty, they add a bit of sugar to try and pull it down, and then the next person thinks, oh, it's not salty enough, and they keep adding a lot of salt. Then ending up your soup will have a lot of salt and a lot of sugar. That might be unnecessary. I feel like.
Yes, it will be too much. So because soup, I mean, I'm thinking about the most fanciest soup in the whole world. So how many chefs really is needed, or is it required to create that kind of super exquisite soup that needs to be delivered incrementally?
Yeah, I think probably we have to bring back to the context that we are more familiar, like delivering software. Yeah. I think that's just an analogy. Austin mentioned two things. I think the first thing is process. If the process is right, does the too many chef matter? Maybe it will sort it out. Another thing he talked about the leader, the head chef. So the people. If the people are right, that if the people are right and then the process is correct, will they like sort it out among themselves? They'll maybe organically form another team or something. That could be a possibility as well.
So I think it's nice to have this conversation after the previous topic we had, which is, no person is better than the wrong person. And so I feel like it ties in a bit with having too many chefs. I guess if we have the wrong person, then that person might be deemed the too many part of the chef in some cases. And just now, Austin and Aloysius were mentioning it's a lot about the people you choose, even the leader you choose, like the head chef. Maybe if you have good leadership, good coaching, then every chef can find their place. a nice process can be set up for the kitchen so everything works well. Even if you find a lot of good individually strong chefs, but they can't work well together in the kitchen. Master Chef is like, yeah, or what's that show called? The Gordon Ramsay one. Then you
Hell's
might have
Kitchen.
chaos as well.
Hell's
Oh,
Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen. All right, great. Hell's Kitchen. Thank you, Austin. Then you might have chaos as well. Then if there's someone who doesn't get along with the team, that person might be the too many chef. But then that ties in with our previous topic where it might be the wrong person as well, I suppose. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking of sorry, analogy about sports as well. You have people with too much strength in one aspect, like I can only think of football, like striker, yeah, shooting, yeah. So that might not help, yeah, as well. So you have to have a balance in the team. Austin?
Yeah, no, actually I was thinking of another thing that's more related in the chef world. So chefs in the kitchen, they actually practice something called mise en place, which is basically preparing everything at one place before they start cooking. So I think with the more people you have in a team, your mise en place becomes very, very big. Would it, like, you have more people, you might have to prepare more information, there are more risks, there's more dependencies to map out, to understand, to see before you can even start working on the soup, or in this case, the product.
So I guess this brings us back to why in the Scrum Guide there's a suggested number that the team should not be greater than 10. But then at the same time, if we are developing a very complicated product or very complicated soup or even a very complicated meal, then you'll need more people. So I guess then this goes back to deciding whether you can split a team out who just works on appetizers, another team that just works on the soup, the third team that maybe just works on like meats or something like that. So I feel like our discussion so far throughout these 2 or more recordings, we've been talking a lot about how we form the team and what is good for the team. If it's a wrong person, is it better than having no one at all? Or if you have a lot of really talented individuals, would it ever be a problem? And it really brings attention to how team formation is important, I suppose. And so it's something that we should all really take into consideration when deciding how to defining the product alone and understanding the product enough to form a team to create that. Great. Any last words? If not, then
Right.
that's all for that's all for this week.
Nice summary. Are we too
Okay.
many?
I'll be too many. Oh no.
No.
Well, next week if someone else is not here, then we'll know we're too many. Okay, bye everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.